All right. Hey, I've been thinking about making this video for a while, and I think it's time. I'm gonna try and make it not too long. Um, I want to talk about my experience with Meniere's disease, however you say it. I've been diagnosed with it for a year and a half or so, 2 years, but I have suspected I've had it for longer. Um, Meniere's disease just doesn't have a ton of information about it, um, especially from younger people I've found in my research. So I just wanted to share my time with it and reach out to a community out there because um, the more I research, particularly on Reddit, where people are just actively sharing their experience, the more I understand it and the better I feel. So, um, yeah. So I first my history of it, I guess, is when I was in high school, 17, 18, I noticed tinnitus in my left ear. I just woke up with it one day. So I was kind of freaked out. I'm a musician. I have always worn earplugs. Like in high school, I had like a pair of foam earplugs in every pair of pants. They just like go through the wash. Um, it's like how I learned to play drums was with earplugs. So, um, went to an audiologist. My hearing test came back with some low frequency loss in the left ear. She was kind of concerned because usually if you lose hearing from loud noise exposure, it's in the higher frequencies. So she ordered an MRI to rule out anything strange. Did the MRI, came back totally fine. We kind of just like left it there. And I just got used to the tinnitus. It never went away, but it wasn't too big of a deal. But I had also noticed if I'm working on music and the first time I noticed it, I was using a ping pong delay, which for those who don't know is basically an echo effect that pans the echo from ear to ear. And I noticed that in my left ear, the pitch was sharper than in the right ear. And that really freaked me out. That out of order. That actually happened before I went to the audiologist. So, and it still is basically the worse my Meniere's is acting up, like the bigger that difference. Anyways, fast forward to almost 10 years later when I think about 25. I had my first bout of pretty bad vertigo for about a day and a half or 2 days. I was like pretty debilitated, nauseous, and it was pretty bad. So at that point I had been regularly getting my hearing tested, at least once a year. And it was kind of declining in that lower area, but also starting in the higher area too, which is, pretty depressing and heartbreaking as a musician. Everyone loses hearing over time. It's a part of aging, but this was, an abnormal amount. And only in my left ear. My right ear is perfect hearing, as perfect as it can be. So yeah, I had the vertigo and still was not diagnosed with Meniere's because there's four kind of hallmarks of Meniere's. Hearing loss, usually low frequency, but not always. Tinnitus, a feeling of fullness or pressure in the ear, and vertigo. So basically, I hadn't yet had the fullness, but that came a little bit later. In summer of 2023, I started really feeling the fullness constantly. The tinnitus had kind of changed to like a lower pitch, and my hearing was not great. This was following a time that I'm pretty sure I had COVID. I was never symptomatic, but I stayed with a friend who had gotten really sick, tested positive, told me and the other friends who were staying there, hey, you should test, and tested positive. And a lot of people say that Meniere's episodes can be brought on by viruses. So that's kind of my best guess, but it doesn't change the outcome. So I go to an ENT, and that's when he is like, let's call this Meniere's because you have all these things. And basically, there's some common knowledge about Meniere's, which you'll find in the internet. Like, if you're just watching this video because you think you have it, obviously go to an ENT. I'm not a doctor. I only know my own experience and what I've heard from other people. But a lot of people find that too much sodium, too much caffeine, too much alcohol, being dehydrated, getting not enough sleep exacerbates everything. And for myself, sleep is a big thing. Like last year, I played a gig with my band at South by. We had not slept a lot for an early flight. I, drank a bunch of coffee, was dehydrated because it was hot, and I played a set with vertigo, and it was just an absolute nightmare. And that experience I kind of chalk up to being triggered by lack of sleep, dehydration, all the above. But I got vertigo a couple weeks ago, really bad, seemingly with no trigger. I was pretty hydrated, sleeping plenty because it was the holidays. I was at home, really doing nothing. My sodium consumption was definitely higher than usual, but sodium isn't usually a trigger for me, though I do now maintain a low sodium diet because I'm just trying to not add anything to the mix. I've also stopped drinking. Can't say I've noticed a huge benefit from that, but I've had vertigo several times recently, and just the thought of being hungover or drunk and having vertigo is just enough to make me not want to drink. So also life is just way better when you're not, hungover all the time. So that's mostly my story. I mean, I have tried, as far as medical stuff, if you Google it, it's called the John of Ohio regimen. It is a vitamin regimen developed by this dude who's not a doctor, who just did a ton of research. And I would recommend checking that out. I would recommend systematically adding the vitamins in one by one, because I found like a couple of them didn't agree with my stomach, but I take them. I can't tell if they really help, to be honest. I kind of fell off the regimen for a while. When I did it for 6 months straight, I feel like my symptoms were pretty checked. So it can't hurt. They're good for you. It's I'm not going to list all of them. There's several vitamins on that list, but that's worth a shot. I would definitely recommend going to a nutritionist, or in conjunction with your GP or ENT. Go to a nutritionist, go to a holistic doctor, because to be honest, like, if you're dealing with symptoms, most ENTs don't really know much about Meniere's, which is what makes it incredibly frustrating. They all tell you something different. Like, I saw some telehealth person the other day when I was having really bad vertigo. He's like, low sodium doesn't work. Like, just take a diuretic. So I was like, what? I've literally never heard that before. Went to my ENT, got prescribed a diuretic, and I don't blame this on them, but I had a terrible reaction to the diuretic. It was triamterene hydrocortisone, and that it gave me vertigo, honestly. Which I've looked up. I've shared that story on Reddit, and other people have had fine experiences with it. So honestly, everyone's different. Everyone is super different in what triggers theirs. Some people find they're really sensitive to sodium, and when they keep it low, they're like normal. That's not the case for me, but I just try and keep inflammation down. But yeah, I also just, if you have meniere's, and have any experience or resources, please comment on this. My symptoms, it seems like are somewhat manageable right now. Do I think about, like, am I going to lose my hearing? Like, of course, like, I'm a musician. And that is like an incredibly lonely and depressing feeling. But for the most part, I like keep my head up, and, I'm really grateful that it's where it's at and not any worse at the moment. But it has been getting worse, and the last couple months have been really very hard for me. And it's just, if you have it, how kind of, it's hard to describe, what you're feeling. It's like people who have any sort of chronic pain, which I don't have, and my heart goes out to them, because it's like you can't fully explain what it's like to someone else. So that's why I wanted to make this video, to just provide my story and any tidbits I have. I'm sure I'm forgetting so much because it's just been, a long journey, but please comment and share this video if to someone who they think they might have it, or if you know any doctors who specialize in it. I would love to hear. I'm really willing to travel somewhere and kind of get someone's expert opinion. So, but all in all, I'm super grateful. I have an amazing life, and it hasn't slowed me down too much until recently. So, if you feel like you have it, don't despair. I firmly, like, I'm never gonna let it rule my life. I refuse. Debilitating vertigo can be debilitating. But yeah, I think we can find a way, and I think the internet is young, and I think there's a lot of information out there that's going to be continue to kind of proliferate around meniere's, because there's not a ton. It's not super common. So anyway, I hope this helps you. Thank you.